behind the bikini. I feel like my camera's really high for some reason today. I'm looking up at you right now. I'm gonna try to adjust that as I'm talking. Anyway, we're back. We're back, and this just goes to icing on the cake as far as this past week, right? Just little things we got to adjust and stuff like that. So there, that's better. I feel like I'm eye level.
It's
I know
usually
it's
me with
weird.
the tech issues.
I know that was weird. I'm like, how am I looking up at you? I'm using a different stand for my phone. That's why. So
Got it.
yeah, I was like, that's not
Take
right.
some adjusting.
Yeah, it just takes a minute. Just take a second. But anyway, welcome back. Before we get into everything today, like, comment, subscribe, hit those buttons wherever they are. Today's topic, we are going to talk about birth control. This is a very I guess hot. I wouldn't say it's a hot topic, but it's something that's not really discussed a lot because there's just a lot of misinformation and things like that out there. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that. But before we get into all of that, we did finish up the athlete summit this past weekend. When we went into it, I was like, I'm just gonna get Rihanna to do that session with us because I knew you were gonna be running around because you were helping not only with teaching like the rest of us coaches and stuff, but also planning the whole thing. So there was like no time in between. So with that
Zero
said,
time. Yes.
I mean, I was just saying like there was no time even for me and I wasn't in charge of anything. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah, if
can
I was not
imagine.
with a client, not with the summit, or not with you guys, I was sleeping.
Yeah. Yeah. Which didn't happen much because I know even for myself, like at one point, what was it? When we finished on Saturday, we got back to the room. I ordered Uber Eats and I thought about going down to the lobbies. I knew a couple of the girls were going to go down there and just hang out for a little bit. So I ate, sat down on my bed. This was 8 o'clock and I was dead. I was out, gone. Rihanna left and went to the gym. When she came back at 10, I was still sitting there in my clothes. Like I hadn't even changed, nothing. And I was like, I said to myself, I'm going to get up and change. And I didn't even do that. I passed right back out. I was like, I slept a full 12 hours because I got up at 8 o'clock the next morning. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a little caveat to the summit weekend that my in-laws were in town. So they
Ah,
were staying at the Arizona Grand. Drew's grandfather is out here who has dementia, and then
ah,
his mother's sister. So they came out to visit. They called us a couple months ago. They're like, "We're coming out to Arizona in January." Like, great. What's the date? Literally, there's one date that doesn't work, and of course, it was the summit week. So it was cool. They ended up staying at the Arizona Grand and took the Corvette and had made a day of it, but I had to go to dinner with them Saturday after the summit
oh,
and rally.
oh.
And it ended up being a beautiful dinner and whatnot. But, obviously we were absolutely exhausted, but it was good to spend time with them too. But yeah, we had a lot going on, but
Yeah.
you just keep going.
Well, I think also with those things, it's one of those things too that when you stop, that's when everything just kind of crashes down. So
Oh
probably for
yeah.
you guys, it was like we're just gonna keep going
Yeah, we
because
got back to our
everyone's
room after the summit, and Drew's like, "Should we shower?" Like, I'm like, "No, like, if I stop, if I sit down, I'm
yeah,
not leaving." I said, "Call your
yeah,
parents. We're leaving right now."
yeah, absolutely,
Yep.
absolutely. I mean, that's how it always was with my CCTS weekend too, because that was a 4 day thing. It was like I
Yeah.
just can't sit down. Like if I sit down, I'm over. It's done.
Game
I
over.
can't. Yeah. So you just keep powering through until it's over.
Yeah, like, even there, like, during the summit on Saturday, like, I didn't sit much, and then,
Yeah,
like, when I
same.
did need a rest, I was, like, lunging, like, doing, like, stretching on the ground, like, because I was like, "If I put my butt in that seat, man, it's gonna be really hard to get back up."
Absolutely, absolutely. Because when you guys checked in, did you check in on Thursday or did you check it on Wednesday?
Yeah, I checked in on Thursday. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So then I stayed through till Sunday. I was like, I thought to myself, like, I could go get a spa treatment, but I could do that anywhere. So I just went hiking instead and did a little, because they have those hiking trails and stuff like that there, and then got back to Vegas that night. And yeah, when I got back, I passed out too. Passed out hard. Yeah.
Yeah, I did in-person check-in Saturday morning starting at 7:30 in the morning till 2, so I was able to get out of the hotel around 2 o'clock, and then I came home, and, Drew was still golfing with Bill on Sunday, so he got home
Oh,
around
yeah.
4, and then, when we both got home, we're, like, turning our cell phones off. Jamie called Drew at one point for something, and he literally called, he's like, "Is this work related? Call tomorrow."
Well, that's the other thing. I don't know how, like, honestly, I don't know how Jamie does it. Like, she was just non-stop the whole weekend. Like, even when I was in the gym, so I trained at the gym too on Sunday. Even when I was in the gym, she was still doing check-ins. And I checked in with her on Thursday when I got there. And I'm just like, how does this woman sleep ever? Like, ever? Because I'm like, Jesus Christ.
No, she doesn't.
Like, god
Um,
damn.
yeah, I mean, between Drew and I know that we held about 30% of the ticket holders that were at the event. We ended up selling, I think it was 215 tickets, 198 showed up, which is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, between Drew and I, 30%. Then with Jamie's roster, I think that that was definitely a good piece of like the pie, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, it sucked because any free time Drew had, he was golfing with Bill, which is great, but like he wasn't able to do any one-on-one assessment with his
Mhm.
athletes. And Jamie was just trying to see her athletes that were there, in between sessions and whatnot. And we do the best we can. Obviously, if
Yes.
our athletes are traveling out to us, of course we want to see them, but there's only so much time. um,
Well, even with that, like, cause like, 'cause Bill was doing posing assessments and stuff like that too on Saturday, and Jamie was like, "You want to get in front of him?" I was like, "No, because I've got other things to do." I'm like, "I'm not even in prep yet. Like, there's no point to this right now. I'll do it. I'll do it when I have some free time to do it. Like, this is fine. Like, let the other girls who have the opportunity to do it now. You know?"
Bill was so hands-on, so involved the
Yeah.
entire weekend. I was not expecting that.
Hmm.
He was there just like us all day Saturday. He got there pretty early, and like Sean is saying, like he was literally at Jamie's side or in that posing room all day long. And I got a good, amount of time with him too, one-on-one. And he just truly loves being a judge. Like he loves giving feedback. He loves this sport. We talked about this at the summit. Like Drew or Bill will remember you on
Hmm.
stage from years ago. I mean, we were at the VIP gala and there was an amateur at our table, one of Drew's amateurs, and she hasn't been on stage in a minute. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I remember you. You were at this show. You got this play." Like it's amazing what he remembers. And yeah, I think I'm so appreciative of that, just really seeing just like when athletes come and see us in person, like they idolize us. We're coaches at Body Fusion. It's like we're just human at the end of the
Right.
day. And really getting to know Bill and like hear his heart. And it was just really, really cool to have him there. I'm super appreciative for the amount of time that he poured in everybody.
And I think that's a good thing for people to see too, because a lot of times we hear all the negative things about judging. Like that, there's always that saying of that people love the judges when you win, and everybody else hates the judges that day. You know what I mean? So it's like, but and this is across the board. Anytime you sit down with any of the main judges in our sport, they're all like that. Like they're all like that. They want you to succeed. They want you to do better. Like if you see them after the show, they'll sit down and talk to you about all the things that you could have done better or whatever. They don't get paid much. Like they barely get paid for their time. You know what I mean? It's literally a passion for them, and that's why they do it.
Yeah, he was talking to me about, they want to get it right so
Yeah.
badly. And he's like, after every show that I judge, I watch every photo and watch, all the videos that are out and question, like, did I get it right? Like, did I get this right? And I appreciated his perspective on that. I think it's sometimes, easier for us to think like the judges just get it from the table and, they go to dinner and it's over. But, Bill's like, I literally lay in bed after a show going like, did I make the right call? Was this the
Yeah.
right move? And I don't think every time that they do, right? And neither do we show up as athletes making the right call or making the right peak, decision for our athlete. Like we're human, we make mistakes, but the fact that they're invested enough to ask themselves that question and a deep dive it means a lot. That they want to make sure that it's right, and if not, they're going to learn from that experience and show up to the next show even better, just like the rest of us do.
Yep. And just like, he was saying during our coaches' time that there's certain things that when they have their judges meetings, they're told they're supposed to focus on, right? And he'll say, listen, that's not necessarily what I'm drawn to. That's not necessarily what I think is the best thing on stage. He's like, but I understand what the criteria is and where I have to place people. And that's the hard thing. He's like, because I'm attracted to one certain type of physique, but that's not the criteria. So they just question that in their heads all the time. And I know that's like us with as coaches too. We're like, as much as we think you look great like this, we know that's not what they're looking for. You know what I mean? So we really labor over that, saying, listen, but we have to bring the criteria, even though you may like looking like this or posing like that or whatever it may be, that's not the criteria. So we have to focus on what they actually want to have rewarded too.
Yeah, that was really good insight of like how they judge. And
Yeah.
I think after the Olympia, when we were getting different feedbacks from different judges, I really started to understand that we have the criteria, but each judge has that specific piece of the criteria that they value first. For Bill, maybe that's conditioning. For Becky, it's presentation. For
Right.
Tyler, it's shape. To whatever that
Right.
looks like. So again, that goes into making sure that you're picking a coach that knows that,
Mhm.
especially at the pro level and the Masters Olympia level. Like, you have to know the judges to put your athlete in front of,
That's right.
which presents on what they think is most important. If your athlete is incredible at posing and, meets 85% of the criteria, well, maybe we put them in front of a Becky or Bernadette because they love the posing side of things. If somebody has fantastic shape, that goes in front of Sandy, right? So
Yep.
it's just really knowing those panels and knowing where to put your athletes. And, I think that's why we've had so much success this year, obviously, with Fit Body Fusion, is like our coaches now know this too, not just Jamie, not just Shelby, not just Drew. Like, our coaches are starting to understand this too, and putting their athletes, in the best show for them and what they're going to bring that day and what their strengths are.
Yeah. And I hear that too sometimes. People are like, this so and so judge gives the worst feedback. I'm like, no, that's just what they focus on. You may focus on something else for the feedback. That particular judge focuses on that particular part as the what they look at first. So that's their version of feedback. It's not that it's terrible feedback, it's that that's what they focus on. You guys just have different focuses. That's all.
Yeah, and I think in the earlier years, that's why it's important to get in front of different judges and
Yeah.
different panels that you can figure out, what works for you and what doesn't. Like, I'll say, like, what worked for me, or the judging panel that worked for me in my amateur years, is not the judges that pick me now, because I've changed. My physique
Yep.
has progressed, so it's again, we talked about this at the summit a lot. It's a whole new bear in the pro league. Like, once you get to
Mhm.
the pro league, these are all the chess pieces you have to think about, not so much in the amateurs, but that's kind of where you get started with that, and really learning
Mhm.
like what your strengths are in a peak week and what your physique is. Some people have a really hard time with conditioning, but they can get all the fullness in the world. Sometimes it's opposite.
Yep.
Knowing what those are, that way you can continue to capitalize on those and really dial it in.
Yep, absolutely. So, in general, I think that the whole weekend was one of those things where you got little eureka moments, like for some girls that have been in the sport for a long time, probably a lot of the stuff they've heard before, right? Whereas there were a lot of newbies there too that haven't competed before. I know I talked to Taylor, who was posing a lot of the novice competitors that literally didn't even have a front and back pose. They're all of this was probably very much overwhelming for them, so us also as coaches and people trying to teach, we have to find that middle ground of what's gonna speak to each level of group. You know what I mean? We have everyone there from pros or Olympians all the way down to never competed before in one room, right? So some of the stuff that we feel like might be a little bit dumbed down for us, for them, is like rocket science. You know what I mean? They don't really understand it. So and vice versa, right? So it's a difficult thing to balance. I know that also from running CCTS every year. It was a difficult thing to balance, knowing how to reach to your crowd. You know what I mean? But the one thing I can say is that I think that everybody that walked out of there walked out with some kind of like eureka moment or something like that for themselves.
Yeah, and if you weren't at the summit, so basically the way that we had it laid out was that we had 3 different rooms. So, if you got there in the morning, you were assigned a particular room to start in, and then you would rotate. And then we took lunch, and then we changed up the information that was given in the 3 rooms, and then we did the same thing again. And I think, I had the ability in the morning, I was not lecturing, I was, kind of making sure everybody was doing what they needed to do and calling times and things like that. So I did have the ability to be in all 3 rooms, and the information that was given was absolutely fantastic. We hit
Mhm.
everything from training and posing and how to do a check-in and questions to ask your coach, how, questions to ask on a console call. I mean, really everywhere from A to Z. And just like Sean said, we had such a mixed bag of athletes. We had, athletes that have never been on stage before, all the way up to Olympians. We had male, we had female, and about 10% weren't even on Team Fit Body Fusion. So it truly was fantastic. It was, what we're considering year one of a massive event. We already have almost 100 feedback. We've sent out surveys. We only got, I think, like less than 20 last year, so we already have
Mhm.
100 back from the 200. So, we're the goal is just to keep making it better and better. I think that we could have used an extra day. I think we could have
100%.
used more time on everything. But you know what? I'd rather people wanting more than sitting there going, "Oh, this is boring. Like, I hope this is over soon." But literally every single person was like, "I could have spent 3 hours in this one, or I could have done another day." So overall, the feedback was super positive. We're really happy with it. It was not perfect. It never will be, but we all have our little notes, things we want to change. But overall, I was extremely proud of the coaches that showed up, proud of the teammates that showed up. It was really, really, really beautiful.
Yeah. And it was even as us coaches were like, I could have talked for another, hour on just the two slides that I talked about. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, we were like, we had to truncate everything. We figured it out by like the third round. We're like, okay, we got it down to 10 minutes per person versus the first time it was like, we just spoke too long. You know what I mean? Or, so it's like, it was hard. It was hard to manage those kinds of things. And, one of the biggest pieces of feedback I got was that, people just wanted more time. They wanted more time, especially just to even just come back and pick our brains later, you know what I mean? And just like follow up on questions and all those kinds of things too. So yeah, we could have filled 2 more days.
For
Easy.
sure.
Easily.
100% hands down, easily could have filled more.
Yeah.
And again, like that's, we didn't want to overextend year one,
Mhm.
so taking all the feedback, taking all the good stuff, and I'm just appreciative, obviously, like for my athletes that came because number one, it's a huge expense,
Yeah.
and I get it, but I didn't want anyone to felt like that they paid for it and left not knowing anything, like thinking it wasn't worth it. And everybody was like, "This is so good." Like I left, everybody left with something, like you said,
Mhm.
Sean. And what I did learn is that 99% of us are doing our vacuums
Yeah, right.
completely incorrect. And everybody needs a training assessment. I literally just got back from mine with Allison. So if that's the two things I took away this weekend.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I was gonna say something that completely left my head. Oh, I know what it was. I was gonna say I have one complaint about the whole weekend, and it's because of you. It was fucking freezing. You were like, bring your bathing suits, bring your bikinis. I'm like, I needed a winter jacket, scarf, hat, earmuffs, gloves. I needed all of the things. I did not need a bikini.
Literally the Wednesday though, before everyone came out, it was like sunny and 85, like beautiful. And then that morning, Thursday morning, we woke up and it was raining and they brought in that cold front and it was cold.
It
Like
was
we
so
haven't
cold.
had that weather literally all of December. Like it's been super warm. And then you guys leave and it's beautiful and it's hot again. I'm just like, but it was freezing. But you know me, like Sean said, I was loving it. I love cold weather. I
I
was like,
know, right? Well, I will say it was beautiful on Sunday. That's why I went and did the hike because it was beautiful hiking weather. Like I was outside and just to take the t-shirt and leggings
it
and stuff like
was
that. So, to be fair, if it was gonna be cold, the days to be cold were the days we were inside. So it's
inside.
okay.
You're right. I came crawling out of my hotel room Sunday at 2 when I was finally done. I was like, "Oh my god, it's beautiful out
It's
here."
beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was beautiful. That's why I ended up doing the hiking and all that stuff versus like
Good.
staying in the
I'm glad you
spot.
got some you time. That's
I did.
awesome.
It was nice. It was nice out there. Like I was surprised. I was like, I was like, you get out there. There's no signage anywhere. So I'm like, I just hope I can get back. I'm like, I was like, I'm gonna go for a half hour up, and then I'm gonna just go for a half hour back down, and hope I make it back to the hotel because I don't know where the hell I am.
Yeah. It's one thing I haven't done out here at all is hiking. It's
Yeah.
not my jam, not my thing, but I'll do it at some point.
It was good. It was good. I just kept following. I was funny because the on the first day that they were there, Angel and Kelby and Janet, that whole crew there, they went on a hike and they were like, just pay attention to the big U.S. flag. If you can get back to the flag, you're good. I was like, okay, that's a good thing to keep in
And
mind.
I'll just say this, if those 3 can do it, anyone can do
True,
it.
true, true, true.
I love those. I love those 3.
Yeah, they have a lot of fun. They have a lot of fun.
They are.
So, but yeah, it was a great weekend. So with that, that kind of, I felt like that kind of kicked our season off. I know for me, when I got back, I was like, okay, now I'm gonna start dialing things in. Now I'm like officially in prep kind of thing, just kind of going through it. And it's like, okay, everything's dialed back in. Got to get my cardio in. Got to get my macros. Got to clean my diet up. Got to do all those kinds of things. So now we're moving in forward and I'm starting to look at all the little things. So again, looking at our topic for today, which is birth control. So what you suggested this yesterday. What brought this particular topic up for you? Okay, so anyone that knows me knows that I hate shorts. I never wear shorts. I'm either leggings or skirts. There's like no in between. But it's almost 2026. I decided to expand my boundaries and horizons. When I saw these on Prozis website, I just had to try them because I just love this. This is a deep V in the back. Like I've seen shorts and leggings with the V in the front, but not in the back. So I am going to put these on and try them today when I go do my glute workout. And yeah, I'll update you from there. See if we are a conversion to shorts lover. We'll see. All right, so these are super cute. I'll be honest, I'm usually a high-rise person when it comes to these waistlines, so this is a little bit getting used to having it below my belly button, but they stay in place my entire workout. And then the reason why I don't like shorts is because they ride up in my crotch. These ones did not at all. So yeah, definitely love these. Will I completely switch over to shorts? Nah, I'm definitely a leggings girl for life, but these will make it into the rotation.
I just think a lot of women right now are on a hormone journey in terms of they've been on birth control for, a long time and considering pulling off of it.
Mhm.
And I get questions all the time like, what does this look like? Is this the right choice for me? Or even considering getting on birth control. A lot of us, not you, Sean, but a lot of us on Fit Body Fusion train also really young athletes, like
Yeah.
college athletes or,
Yep.
so considering getting on birth control. So, mostly what I'm hearing is more of like the longer hormone journeys and trying to get off of it. And what does that look like? What should I do? What should I not? And honestly, like this is really a personal decision. That's what I always say to my athletes that are kind of reaching out about this. But I just kind of wanted to talk about, what that journey looked like. For me, I was on birth control. I was put on birth control at 13 years old. That was kind of the thing back then is like you went to the doctor and I started my period extremely early at 9 years old. So from 9 to 13, bad cramps, boob, tenderness, all the things. And so you would tell your doctor this and they would be like, oh, well, let's put you on a birth control. And, we're like, yeah, cool. We're 13. Let's go on birth control. And all of my friends did this in high
Yeah.
school.
This is
All
still
of
a
my
thing.
friends.
Yeah, this is
Yeah,
still a thing now. They still put kids on it today. Yep.
yeah, it's normal, and
Hmm.
um we weren't taught about, long-term side effects or anything of that nature. Just like, hey, this is great. You're going to get on this, prevent pregnancy. It's going to knock out all of your period symptoms, etc. And then my own hormone journey is I started dating Drew at 21 years old. And at that time, I was on the NuvaRing, which is the insert. And I just wasn't kind of like feeling right. And so we decided to end up pulling the birth control. He was like, how long you been on the birth control for? I was like 13. And Drew at that time was studying to be an endocrinologist. Drew
Oh,
did want
okay.
to be a physician. And he was like, I don't think this is good for you. And Drew and I have always, up until 2 years ago when he got a vasectomy, used condoms. We
Mhm.
always did that no matter what. He's like, we're using condoms. So it's like, I think I would want you to pull off this, but it's your body. Like Drew was always like, this is your choice. So I went and talked to the doctor. We ended up pulling off of it. And I had horrible rebound.
Mhm.
Horrible. I had really severe depression. I had no interest in doing anything. I was in bed all the time, you know, just an emotional mess. I didn't want to train. Like it was just really, really rough. Like really from when I kind of early stages of starting Drew, building push, etc. I would go to the doctor, my primary care a few times, and at first he wouldn't even pull a blood test. And he was a fantastic primary care
Mhm.
physician. I loved him, and he was like, "You're healthy, you're fine, everything's fine. Like, don't worry about it." So it wasn't really until I found competing when I met Heather and Premier Alternative Medicine, where we're like, okay, like let's get some labs done. And also to this, like I used to be deathly afraid of getting my lab draw. Like it used to be an
Yeah.
entire thing. Drew had to go with me. Like they would have to lay me down, ice packs, the whole thing. So I was like, oh my God, okay, so we're getting my lab work done. So got my lab work done. And at this point, I was 27, 28 years old. So got off birth control at 21. So I literally lived like this for 6, 7 years.
Mhm.
Got my labs back and literally my labs were unreadable. So sex
Mhm.
hormones, negative, literally negative zero, like nothing in the tank, nothing present. I was having issues with like my period and things like that. And so Heather was like, okay, well, we need to get you on a call with our physician. And that was my first, like ever experience with HRT or, dealing with a clinic that pulled labs and was listening to me. That's when I started my hormone replacement therapy journey. And literally immediately, within a couple days, I felt better.
Mhm.
And I was like, I've been living like this for 6 years and nobody told me. Nobody thought anything was an issue. But I literally had no sex hormones left because I was on the birth control for so long. And also, too, you have to consider obviously the length of time that you're taking the birth control, but obviously, too, like when you start taking it. I started taking it at 13 years
Yep.
old. Your brain and body is nowhere near developed at that point. So you're almost kind of triggering off your body telling your pituitary gland to make sex hormones, and you're doing it in the middle of basically growing.
That's right.
And what am I trying to say?
You're stunting yourself.
Yeah. You
You're
so
preventing yourself to actually go. You're preventing yourself from actually going through puberty correctly.
exactly.
Yeah.
100%,
Mhm.
so when we finally figured it out, it was too late. I have just completely shut down my body's ability to create sex hormones for itself.
Yes.
Um, now when I take women through this journey of pulling off the birth control, I tell them all of this up front because it truly is a journey and it depends on, how long you've been on the birth control, when you started it, how long it's going to take for you to rebound.
That's right.
We've pulled the birth control from people before, and it takes them over a year to stabilize. And some athletes take a couple of months, but it truly just depends. And I just want to kind of go over today, kind of like what that could look like and how you
Mhm.
kind of make the best decision for yourself.
Well, I think that's also, I've done a little bit of the research on this kind of stuff. The pill is an easy solution when you're young, right? It's like, well, she's got acne, give her the pill. She's got, like irregular periods, give her the pill, whatever. But you're right, they're putting girls on it so young that they're not able to fully develop yet. I know for myself, I went on birth control when I was in my 20s. I started dating a long-term boyfriend at the time, so that's why I went on it at that time. I was 22, and at that point, I'm fully developed, right? Even I didn't like the way that made me feel, right? I automatically gained weight. I gained 2 cup size, and this is my boobs. I automatically felt like waterlogged. I was like, I'm not doing this. And I went off it. I was only on it for a couple of months before I went off it. Now, there's been a lot of advancement since then. There's a lot of more options. There's a lot of like low dose hormones kind of thing for birth control and things like that now too. But I really think that where, like you were mentioning before, where a lot of the problems stem from is just being put on it way too early in life. So as we always say about everything, it's always that it depends on things. But I think that, like you were saying, I think a lot of women just don't know the difference because they were put on it when they were 13, and they don't know that this is not right. They don't know that they're supposed to feel any different. They don't know that this stunted their growth and their sex hormones and all this kinds of thing until they get to the point like you did. They take a lab test and like, oh shit, like this is not right. You know what I mean? And then like you said, also it can flip just like that. It can flip just like that. So also, I want to mention that this isn't that the pill and other, contraceptives and things like that are not a bad thing for everyone. For some people, they really help. They can help with PCOS. They can help with a lot of issues, especially later in life, things like that. But it's just like everything else. You need to be fully aware and educated on these things so you can recognize the symptoms and recognize what's good and what's bad. I really feel like when you're young like that, you don't even know the difference. So how are you supposed to know? How are you supposed to know this is good or bad for you? You know?
That's a really great point. Yeah, like we are not saying birth control is bad by any
Right.
means. I think it goes back to why are we taking it?
Mhm.
At 13 years old, in my opinion, a doctor should have said, you need to take 2 Tylenol every day.
Yeah.
Now if
Yep.
somebody's, going to the physician and having extreme symptoms of PCOS, endometriosis, yes, then the why is bigger than I'm having period cramps, doc. Or
Right.
I just, I do not want a pregnancy. I cannot have a pregnancy. We do not like to use condoms, whatever that looks like.
Yes.
That's another why, in my opinion, that, okay, that's a sound reason. And also, too, that's more of a temporary situation, right? Maybe you don't want them right now in college. You're on it 4 years, then you pull off, you find the love of your life, you're having kids. Cool, no problem. Where I also got validation with where I was at in my birth control journey with, again, all of my friends and I were on this from 13 to, like, this was the thing back then. And I was starting to talk to my friends from, high school, and they were all having issues with trying to have children. I was obviously not in that boat, not for me, but like my
Mhm.
best friend from high school, she had 2 miscarriages before she finally got pregnant with her first, had issues with her first pregnancy. Second, she now has 2 children. Second one was much beautiful, or beautiful pregnancy, but that she was not the only one. So I had
Yep.
about a group of 10 girls and they were all having issues getting pregnant or miscarrying. And so I was like, damn, like this is a thing and it's
Yeah.
bad. So I think it goes to establishing your why. Why are you doing it? Why are you on it? And again, if you're in that situation where your doctor's kind of put it on, put you on it when you were super young, you've been on it for this amount of time, and now you're getting into bodybuilding, right? Now we have such a focus on hormones, labs, growth, etc. What's helping our growth, what's stunting our growth, and that's where a lot of women are going, okay, well, I'm on the birth control and I'm old enough now where I can, like, manage getting pregnant or not, in alternate ways, is now a good time to pull it.
Mhm.
And I do think that that's really person dependent
Yes.
because number one, stress is a huge factor with everything, right? I think that we talked about that a lot at the Fit Body Fusion Summit this week in our presentation is that we cannot outcoach cortisol. So if
Right.
life is already very crazy, if you're getting established in your career, working long hours, maybe you're in a really heavy improvement season, like training hard, caffeine intake is through the roof. I don't really feel like that's a good time to just add something else into the mix, right? To
Hmm.
make your internal stress crazy. So like it's almost like a prep. You don't want to
Hmm.
start or do that until everything else in your life is pretty calm, cool, and collected because this is going to add internal stress to your body. The second thing is too is like I would not pull this if you're starting prep soon or in the middle of a prep because hormones are going to be changing a lot once
Absolutely.
you pull
Yep.
it. They're going to plummet, then they need to learn how to rebalance. And in prep, we need hormones to be as stabilized as possible because prep is already suppressing your natural sex hormones and thyroid production. Now we're pulling the birth control out that was already giving you that synthetic
Mhm.
progesterone, estrogen. You're probably not going to have a successful prep.
Yeah.
So I always encourage my athletes, and I don't know how you feel about that, Sean. Like, if you are going to pull the birth control, let's pull that at the start or middle part of a long term improvement season. That
Yeah.
way, we're working on it. And during that time, you're really working on a health phase. You're probably not going to be growing much during that time. Again, as a female, we need an appropriate amount of testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone in order to grow and also get lean. So if
Mhm.
these variables are off, you're going to be in more of a health or a maintenance phase because you have to get the hormones back online to be able to sustain a growth phase.
Yeah. And then also just because you pull it doesn't mean you're going to be automatically better either. I was literally just watching Julie Renee. I was watching one of her little YouTube vlogs, whatever, and she's talking about how she thought that the reason why she couldn't drop weight last season was because she was on birth control. So they pulled it and now she's still not dropping weight this prep. So just because you have that one variable in there, that doesn't necessarily mean that's the variable that's creating the response, right? So don't just automatically jump to it's the pill that's the problem or whatever. You know what I mean? So, like you said, figuring it out when you're in an improvement season is much better than just saying, okay, we're going to just take all this shit out because we're going to prep and then everything's going to be out better because your body doesn't work like that. It just doesn't.
No.
And again, going back to the, it depends, you may be fine. No problem, no issue, or it may take you a while and you may not be able to really hone in on what it is. And like you said, like the less variables that you have changing, the better. So realizing that, okay, maybe this is something we just deal with as we go through this versus let's just take everything away and throw something else on top or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's not necessarily like the best solution in the world just to pull everything either.
No. And something that we noticed a couple of years ago is that we would take on athletes from other coaches, certain coaches in particular, and they were using estrogen blockers to get
Blockers.
lean. And estrogen blocker estrogen blockers definitely have a time and a place, but
Hmm.
they were using them way too early. So they
Hmm.
were crashing the athlete's estrogen like 6 weeks out and then the athlete's not getting lean. Well, they're not getting lean because you need estrogen
Estrogen.
in order to
Yeah.
get lean.
Yep.
So that goes back to what Sean is saying like if you pull it, the number one thing is making sure that you can rebound properly, and that is going to take time. And the question is, how much time? I
Yep.
have taken many athletes through post, birth control pulling journey, and I have seen more than likely on average 6 to 12 months. It's usually not very fast. I've had one case where it was 4 weeks and she was
Yeah.
pretty stable, getting a cycle back, no weight gain, etc. And honestly, too, like when you pull it, you're going month after month after month, and you're just hoping you get a cycle and you hoping you get a cycle. I'm thinking about one athlete in particular. She finally just got her cycle back like 10 months later. But every single time that she was checking in, she's like, I'm frustrated. Why am I not getting my period back? And I was like, listen, you have to relax. If you're hyper focusing and you're stressed on this, we're just going to continue to push it out further. I
Yep.
promise you, it's going to come back. Labs looked beautiful. We just weren't spiking a period. Then all of a sudden, we spike a period. And two, in addition to pulling the birth control and letting the hormones rebound themselves, all other things have to be in place too. We talk about stress. Sometimes with
Mhm.
athletes, especially the longer it is that we're waiting for that cycle to come back, I might have to pull back on training Meaning if I need them to train 6 days a week, that might be too much. I maybe need to pull them down to 4, or
Mhm.
maybe I pull back on intensity. Definitely like no cardio, or as minimal as cardio as possible. Is food in a good spot? Where are the fats at? Like there's so much that goes back into making sure that we get that cycle back. And then the bottom line is, my case, I pull the birth control and my body just can't rebound. It
Yeah.
can't make the hormones for itself anymore. And so I waited it out a pretty good amount of time, obviously, 21 to 26. I wasn't getting a cycle. I wasn't feeling better. And finally, I started the HRT therapy. And now I'll be on HRT therapy my entire life. I'll stick myself 3 times a week. But you know what? That's a heck of a lot better than feeling the way that I did.
Yeah.
And that's the price I have to pay for, I guess, a choice that I made at 13. Is
Yeah.
that really a choice I
Yeah.
made? That's a hard thing too, right? But
Yep.
there are so many tools out there now in order to help get us back, but I would at least give it at least a good year and a half if
Well,
you're in
and
that journey.
you could also flip this over to the opposite side with the testosterone for men too, because a lot of them, they when they supplement and things like that with PEDs or testosterone, whatever, their body no longer can produce it. So then they have to be on HRT the rest of their life too. It's the same thing, just two different types of hormones. And there is a lot of conflicting arguments out there. There's arguments out there that there's studies that have been done where women that were on birth control, they lost performance, and then there's studies that were done where women that were on birth control lost strength but gained muscle in an improvement season. And then there's studies done where there was no changes for the women that were on birth control. So it's just like you don't know until you figure it out for yourself. Like everybody's going to be a little bit different, and this is why we always go back to the same thing that we say all the time, which is it depends. And again, this goes back to why you have to try to start figuring this out before you jump into a prep. When you're in an improvement season, like you said, take the 10 months to get the period to come back, because what the birth control is doing, the oral birth controls and specifically, is it's making you think you're having a cycle, but you're not actually ovulating. You're like that's what that does. It stops that from happening, right? So it takes your body a time to realize, I need to actually ovulate again. I need to actually do this again myself. So it's like you have to give your body that time, like we said, improvement season, not prep.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I would say, like, if an athlete comes to me and they're like, "Jay, I want to get off the birth control. What does this look like?" I always say, "Let's do an improvement season,
100%.
never in a prep." And I tell them, like, "Let's do it in a longer improvement season. Like, please don't tell me 4 to 6 months from now, let's jump into a prep. Like, if we do this, we're committing to this and we're not stepping on stage until we are internally healthy." And I understand that's frustrating because
Mhm.
at that point, you have zero control over how your body responds, literally zero. You have to just give it time. And it is, like I said, extremely, extremely frustrating. But that's literally the only thing that you can do. Athletes will then come to me and say, like, I need to be on a birth control for whatever reason,
Mhm.
whatever reason. And obviously, I'm not a physician, but you have to talk to your physician about what's best for you. But I
Right.
would lean into more of like the non-hormonal IUD, looking into the risk versus rewards on that. I was scheduled years ago to go get one, and I ended up not showing up to the appointment because I heard it's so painful if you've never had a baby before,
Oh,
like getting
really?
into the cervix. Yeah. So like I was just looking up the whole night before, like everybody's testimonials, and I ended up not going to the appointment that morning. But the women that do have it, they say it's not that bad, and it's a really fantastic method. You have the copper IUD, so it's like non-hormonal, or like a low estrogen oral, birth
Yeah.
control.
Yeah.
But it's truly like, this is your body and your choice. I'm not here to say I'm your bodybuilding coach and no birth control or this birth control is better. Like, you're going to make your choice at the end of the day. And as your coach, I'm going to fully support you and coach you to whatever choice that you make, and we'll deal with it no matter what.
Now, this could have just been something stupid that I read, and it might not be reality. But I don't know if you ever heard this before. I read something. It was like on like Instagram or some shit, where the guy actually got hurt from his girlfriend's copper IUD. Does that make
Oh,
sense?
really?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
like, if they s I have heard that, like, if they slide down, so
yeah,
which is an issue,
yeah,
yeah, like, they can, like, feel it, and
yeah,
obviously depending on the anatomy of the male as well.
yeah,
Yeah, I have heard that. Or,
yeah.
like, where they pull it out accidentally because there is a string attached to it, you can't feel it, but a doctor should
Over
be
here, we
able.
like shivers.
Yeah, no, but I have heard of cases like
Okay, so
that.
that's real. It's not like just some random Instagram reel that I saw.
No, and that's the thing too, like anatomy wise from the male, but also the female, like some women, like women that have multiple children have softer
Yeah.
cervixes. That's why it's so easy for the IUD to go in, but some women have too soft of a cervix, so then it like pulls out or
Oh,
gets like
yeah.
lost. That's why it has the string attached to it. But yeah, I because I did a lot of deep diving, so
I know
those
because
were
you were gonna.
things that I
Well, this is
did
why I
read.
asked because you were gonna go get it done. I was like, I've never looked into it really because I've never wanted to do it, but
Yeah. Yeah, but but the pulling out process, like when they go in, like you're like, okay, I'm done with the birth control, or I think you have like with the copper, I think you have to get it done redone every 3 years. I think it's three to
okay.
5 years. You have to
Yeah,
get it
I think it's 3 to 5.
reimplanted.
Yeah.
So they have to go in, pull it out. Like they say, you don't feel that at all, and then once you get like one, then you're good, like
Yeah.
pain wise. But I was like, I don't know if I'm willing to go in there for one time, and I didn't. I didn't show up to the appointment. Funny enough, too, that the OB was a client of my aunt's at the time, so he shows up to his physical
Uh,
therapy appointment later on that night, and he was like, "You didn't show up for your
you didn't
appointment this
show
morning." I was
up.
like, "I got scared."
Right. I mean, rightfully so, like
Yeah,
those, again, I know we're laughing about this, but these are all things you have to take into consideration.
yeah,
These are all things you have to think about. And it's a lot, I'm like, part of me is like, I'm sitting here, I'm like, kudos to you guys for using condoms the whole time you guys have been married. Like, I know that you tried to go get vasectomy earlier on in your marriage and they wouldn't allow you to do it. So that's just crazy to me. But like, that would be my suggestion. I'm like, have the guy go do that because that's so much easier than all this other shit.
yeah. Yeah,
I
so
mean,
what Sean was
really.
talking about is we were 24 and we tried to go get it done and they were like, "No, you guys are just still too young. Like you need to go." They had a very specific process. They wanted like X amount of sessions with a therapist and then a therapist to sign off. And we were like, "We're not
Yeah.
doing that." So
Yeah.
we finally got it done at 31 years old. But
Yeah.
yeah, we knew early on like we didn't want kids, and obviously everybody knows like Drew and I are very career driven
Right.
and we just did not want any oopsies. And if we did have an oopsies, we never wanted to make that choice. So we just
100%.
wanted to double up on that. And it worked while it did, right? Is it the most great feeling? No, but it's still a good experience, and I
Yeah.
think that's one of those kind of risk versus reward things, those choices you have to make in life. Is it the absolute best? No, but it's still pretty damn good. And you know that
Yeah.
you're protecting yourself in multiple layers. So
Yeah. Well, I think also, I mean, this is just another aspect of that too. A lot of women have, aversions to condoms too, just like
they do.
actual allergies. You know what I mean? So that might not be an option for you. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So again, this goes back to the whole it depends thing. So you have to
Yes.
figure out what's going to be best for you.
Yeah, they have the female condoms now, no experience with those, but they
Yeah,
have
me
those
neither.
as well. But yeah, there's women that have like the latex allergies and things like that. And that's where like this topic is so specific. But what I
Mhm.
really wanted to drive home is if you do choose to pull it, it's a journey and it's not going to be a couple of weeks. It is you're investing in a few months of waking, a few months of feeling your emotions being like this, a hormonal roller coaster, whatever symptoms you had with your cycle, pre-birth control, acne breakouts, tender breasts, cramps, those are going to come back and they're going to come back tenfold. So it's just giving you all of the information up front to make the best decision for yourself. Sean or I are not ones to say what's the best decision for you as a coach on this team. We will never say you should do this on this topic. We're going to give you the pros and cons, and it's your choice at the end of the day, what you would like to do. And then we're going to fully support you and coach you through that.
Yeah. And I will say, just from my own experience, like I said, when I was on in my 20s, like it was almost an immediate feeling of feeling better as soon as I went off it. That water weight just dropped. Yeah, I lost my boobs. That's why I went and got them done. But like it was so funny. I was like, because that was where I started like really working out and stuff. And I was like, so I was really fit and I had double D boobs, and I was like, oh, that's nice. And then I went off, off the birth control, and I'm like, oh, goodbye. I'm like, this sucks.
So
So
what's so funny about this is like, so I got my birth control. I got my period at 9 and I had
yeah.
like double D's. I think I can't even remember. Like the day I got my period, we were at track day. and I was on the bleachers, passed out. I ended up waking up to a teacher tapping on my shoulder because I literally had blood through my jeans. They're
Oh
like, Jordan, we're gonna go to the
no.
office. So that's how I started my period. And then obviously, you guys know, like my mom was never really present. So it's like we're calling my grandpa to come pick me up. And then I'm dealing with this by myself. I dealt with my first cycle by myself. What is this? What am I doing? Blah, blah, blah. So I have these huge boobs in middle school. And then when I come off the birth control, we pull it, I lose my boobs
Yeah.
completely. And I
Yeah.
had a little bit of tissue. I had like a B. Then I start competing. Then I'm Tarzan chest. So I like
Yeah.
started so strong and then ended
See,
it. But
I didn't get my period till I was 16.
see,
So yeah, I was one of the last people in my friend group to get my period. I'll never forget it too, because I got it right before I went to school one morning. And my routine was I would get up in the morning, get ready to go to school. My mom would still be asleep. I'd go say goodbye to her and go out wait for the bus. My mom was still asleep. I walked in, I go, Mom, I got my period. She goes, okay, see you at school. I walked out. I was like, or see after school. I was like, okay, and I walked out. That was it. That was my whole experience. Like, all right, I just
all
became
right,
a
cool.
woman, but okay, cool, whatever.
So this is not a good time to stay home. This is not an
I know,
excuse to
right? She
stay home.
literally didn't even get out of bed. I was like, cool story, Mom. Yeah.
My dad used to tell me when I used, Dad, can I stay home today? He's like, are you dying? No. Are you bleeding? So what I would, I'm like, yes. So then he had to stop removing, are you bleeding? He's like, that's not an option. I was like, you try being a woman.
I know. Like I grew up in a very conservative household. Like my parents didn't talk to me about sex, none of those kinds of things. I had no clue how to use a tampon. None. I had zero idea how to do that. And like they would do like the sex education classes in school. My parents would write like I want to say permission slips, but they're not permission slips. They're non-permission slips. Like meaning I couldn't be in those classes, right? So I'm like, I would be one of the like four people that would go watch a movie while they did those classes and stuff. So I literally had no idea what was going on. And I'm like, I'm just like, bye, see you after school.
You're
Okay,
like,
thanks, Mom.
so like, should I do anything
I
or
know,
we're
like, I don't
good?
know what to do right now. I was
Cool.
like, ah, that was my introduction to womanhood right there. So I guess that was a good thing because they didn't take me to the doctor to get birth control or anything like that. So I guess, I guess it ended up being a good thing.
Those are the pros, right? And I didn't know that they still offer it to youth at this
Yeah.
point. I hoped that they would get a little bit smarter on that. I'm not really around, years ago we would train youth athletes, so I would kind of hear those things, but I haven't been around youth in a while. So hearing that definitely hurts my heart because there's so much more information out there now when it comes to how long-term birth control use can affect fertility, affect us later on in life, especially stunting growth.
Yep.
And I mean, big
Well, I just
pharma
feel
always
like,
wins.
right. I just feel like it should be common knowledge, but you're right. I mean, follow the money, and I always just go back to, and I don't want to get into this whole like rant on this or anything like that, but I always go back to like you and Drew were together, married, all that, couldn't get the vasectomy, yet they can do gender reassignment surgeries and hormones and stuff to kids that haven't even gone through puberty yet. And I'm just like, how make it make sense. I'm
Yeah.
like the only thing that makes sense is follow the money. That's the only
Yeah.
thing that makes sense in this situation.
Yeah, and that was a big shocker too, because we were 24, so
Yeah,
it wasn't like we were like, I don't know, 21, you like closer to 18, like we were together and the doctor asked us extensive questions. How long have you guys been together? Is this something you've always agreed on? Blah, blah, blah. And it was like we were together 4.5 years at that point. And we said, pretty much from 6 months in, I've told you, or we talked about this on the Fit Body
you
Fusion
did.
podcast. Like I
We
was
talked about it here
definitely
too.
no, Drew was
Yeah,
on the fence. And then 6 months in, he's like, oh no, I don't want kids. So it was like pretty firm out the gate. Like we weren't, and they still said no. And
yeah,
I was like, this is this is our bodies,
that's right.
like that's crazy. But and all we're asking for is we just don't want the ability to have children. Like we don't want to have to make a mistake,
That's right.
and kill a life,
That's right. Absolutely.
but yeah, it is. It's really, really sad. And man, that hurts my heart that they still do that. But I guess I'm not surprised. And it sucks for the parents too, because they want what's best for their child,
That's right.
right? So you have your kid in there who's complaining about cramps or not feeling well. And the first thing of a parent wants is for their child to be well and to feel good. And so it's not anybody's fault,
That's right.
It's a messed up system.
It is, absolutely. And it's like, but that's in general, we've talked about this before. It's American healthcare. It's
Yeah.
throw a pill at it. It's not about prevention. It's about throw a pill at it, get you addicted to something, so then we have to put you on something later. Like you said, now because of that decision when you were younger, you're gonna be on HRT for the rest of your life because of it. And it's really unfortunate. Like that wasn't something you should have had to deal with as a child.
Yeah, and I think people make that argument too sometimes for like wanting to start testosterone therapy, or I should say, not wanting to start
Yeah.
testosterone therapy. Like, well, I don't want to start this because I'm gonna have to be on it for the rest of my life. So
Yeah.
if you take somebody that is now being prescribed HRT therapy due to long exposures of birth control, well, you're gonna have to be on one of them, right? So you're either gonna
Yeah.
have to be on birth control, which most of the time is synthetic estrogen, progesterone, or you're gonna
Yeah.
have to be on HRT therapy, which is gonna be synthetic testosterone, progesterone, and or an estrogen patch,
Yep.
right? So it really is the same. Just for
Yep.
some reason, the one from Big Pharma, birth control, is widely recognized and everything's fine. But then the HRT therapy is still a little bit taboo. Much better over the last couple of years, but still a little bit taboo. But it's like, no matter what, you're still going to have to take something now forever
Yes.
if you want to feel good, if you want to feel
Yes.
better, right? So it's, that's why I always say to athletes, like, the worst that can happen is we pull the birth control, we wait a year to a year and a half, nothing's happening, and this is if labs are not coming back online, right?
Mhm.
Like, we pull the birth control, we take labs. If labs are slowly coming back up, we just need to wait it out. It's going to
That's
come.
right.
You just got to wait it and give it its time. If we're pulling labs and they're still suppressed, pulling labs still suppressed, pulling labs still suppressed, after 6 months, 2 years, probably not coming back, right? So something has to be added in at that point if you're symptomatic and not feeling well.
Yeah.
If you're not symptomatic and you don't care about having kids or bone density or, things like that, like not producing a cycle if you should be, that's a completely different conversation. But
Yeah.
again, it depends. How's the athlete presenting? What do labs look like? It really is a complex bag. But I wanted everyone to feel very empowered of like, you can make that decision. There is options, but the number one thing to take away is it's time. It's
Yeah.
it's a lot of time. It's a lot of patience. Sometimes some lifestyle behaviors and lifestyle behavior changes.
Yep.
And yeah, it's your choice at the end of the day.
Well, and you just touched on something too that we didn't even talk about too, the bone density thing. Like people don't realize how much the birth control pill can affect your bone density as you get older.
I think that's why I was so comfortable for so long, truly, and not pressing my primary care about not having a period for that long.
Yeah.
Like when I pulled the birth control, I was like, cool, I'm not having a cycle. This is great. I don't have to pay for tampons and deal with that. And then I got my bone density shortly after I got, my labs. I got a DEXA scan because my first coach wanted to see, my DEXA scan with the muscle amount, but it also comes back with the bone, and my bone density was low, like crazy low. And so that was an issue. So
Hmm.
now the primary care is taking me seriously. So now it's like, oh no, now we need to get a period back online. Like, you should be cycling. I'm like, I've been telling you guys this for years. You didn't tell me to go get a DEXA scan. My coach did. And I see this a lot in bodybuilding. And I'm glad I had this experience because now I can tell my
100%.
clients how to advocate for themselves. It's unfortunately I had to go through it for a really long time, but now, it's not a shocker when clients come up to me and they're like, my doctor will not pull these labs. My doctor will not do this. My doctor
Hmm.
says no to this. And I'm like, yeah, that's unfortunately normal. And that is why we have cash services now with Premier and Hormone Logics. And because we can get anything we need, we can get
Right.
any lab panel we need for a super great cost. I've had athletes that push back and they want to use their health insurance. And, the question is the doctor going to give you the prescription that we want, a full metabolic and a full sex hormone panel? Some won't, some
Right.
will. And then you'll still use your insurance. And I had an athlete year one get a $650 bill in the mail. They were mad at me. I was like, I told you
Yeah.
that they were not
Absolutely.
going to cover this. You could have just spent $450 and it was done.
Yep.
But it's so convoluted. And I feel like as coaches, like, it's our responsibility to give all the information, because I just feel like sometimes, unfortunately, not everybody, but doctors just kind of give the information that kind of,
That
fits the
fits them.
narrative of whatever is happening. Or like, I feel like as coaches, we get so much more information about our athlete because we're
Yeah.
checking in with them each week. We know what
Uh-huh.
their biofeedback is. Some doctors don't even spend 10 minutes in the room with the client.
Absolutely.
You barely get 5 minutes sometimes. So it's like we know so much more about what's going on with that athlete to truly help guide them. And, that's where I really help a lot of my athletes of like, no, you need to go back. This is what you need to say. Or, you know what? We need to forego this altogether. This is who we need to go to. This is who's going to listen to us and who's going to help us.
Yes. And I agree with all that. It's I think the disconnect, it's really hard because of I guess the level that we're on in comparison to doctors. You know
Of
what I
course.
mean? Like doctors are up here, coaches are down here. We are ancillary, we are a luxury, they are a necessity, right?
Absolutely.
So automatically you just want to listen to your doctor, not your coach. It's like, well, you're
Absolutely.
just a coach, you know? But what they don't take into account is we're fueled by making you the best version of yourself. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to optimize everything that you have because that makes you a better athlete, that makes you a better human in general, right? Doctors, I'm sorry, they're fueled by money and money alone. Like that's what they're fueled by. They, like you said, you go in for your annual checkup once a year. You barely, most of the time, I don't even see my doctor. Most of the time, it's a physician's assistant.
Seeing the nurse. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't know anything about my daily life.
Yeah.
Nothing, not a thing.
Yeah.
And they're just trying to roll you through in order to collect their checks that they need to, get the money from big pharma, all that kind of stuff, pay their bills, which you can't fault them for that. That's what they're there
No.
for. That's their job, you know what I mean? But at the same time, you are far more invested in yourself if you're especially if you're an athlete than they're ever going to be invested in you. And you got to remember that. You got to remember, like, even I say this even as us as coaches, we think about you whenever we're working on your check-ins and whenever we see you at a show or whatever. You live in your body 24/7. You are far more invested in yourself than we are. You've got to take control of that for yourself.
Yeah. And I think that too, like, some athletes come to us and they're not in tune with their body.
Yep.
They're like, sometimes I gain weight and I don't know why. And I'm like, well, follow your leg day, follow your cycle, follow your
Yeah.
luteal phase, like really being in tune with your body is so important so that you know your body very well and you can speak up when something's off or when something happens. Obviously as coaches, we can only teach or prescribe within our scope of practice. We don't
Yes.
have a lot of wiggle room that way.
That's right.
Obviously physicians do, but that's the thing is like as your coach, I probably know more about how you're presenting, the symptomologies that you have, the trends of your body, where your doctor is literally just looking at the intake form that you sign and why you're there that day, maybe asking you a question or two and prescribing based on that. So they have some information and they're making what they think is the most logical solution or decision based on that information. But if they just had a little bit more, had the ability to spend 20 minutes in the room with you to really dive these things through, probably a different decision would be made.
Yeah.
I know Joanna with Hormone Logics, she spends at least an hour on blood work review calls, sometimes more with her athletes. And then with Heather and Kara at Premier Alternative, they're on the phone for at least 45 minutes, to an
Yep.
hour with a new client. So, it's just a lot of information to take in to truly understand the individual, what their why is, what's the goal, and then making the decision based on that and what's the best thing for them.
That's right. And we go back and forth with this all the time, but it's like at the end of the day, we can only give you so much. You do have to take control of it. That's what
Yeah,
we're saying. Like, just be as educated as you can. And again, it can be confusing. There's a lot of information out there. There's a
so
lot of like,
confusing.
and it's one thing tells you one thing tells you another. You know what I mean? So it's like, even those are difficult to sift through when it comes to looking at studies and all those kinds of things. So the more that you can be in tune, and this is where the improvement season comes into play. I know I've had all of my clients basically in an improvement season this year really fine tuning and understanding how their body responds to certain stimulus, because what that does is that then gives you control over, I know why this is happening, you know what I mean? And that's what your improvement season is about. That's where you take control of that, so that when you get into prep we can say, well, we know why this is happening because you always spike up in weight and you've had a really stressful day at work, things like that.
Yeah. I think too, it's really important to say it's okay to take a pause and think about it.
100%.
I have an athlete that came to me, I think it was, I saw her over the weekend and, we're talking about maybe pulling birth control for a certain situation and things like that. And I said, I don't want a decision today. I want you to take at least a couple days to think about it. She checked in with me. I saw her on Wednesday. She checked in with me on Sunday at the summit. She touched base with me on Wednesday. She goes, I'm not ready to make a decision yet. Great. It's a big decision. It's okay to
Right.
take time and pause. I think sometimes we're in front of the doctor and they're moving fast and you just want to get the script and get out of the room. It's okay to say, hey, can you put this prescription in the system? Can I go home? Can I talk to my husband? Can I talk to my coach? Can I do my own research? Can I come back to you with
Yep.
questions or change, whatever? It's okay you don't have to have a decision in that moment.
Yes.
If you're considering getting on, getting off, whatever that choice is, it's a big choice. And you
Right.
should sit down and really, really think about it and map it out. And like I said, talk to your coach about all the pros and cons. And that way you feel the most confident that you have all the information to make the best decision for yourself. It's not a rush. It really truly isn't. Like when we start it, and then we're locked in. So, and that goes either way. So when you
Yeah, and I
make
was gonna
that
say with
choice, you
that
want to,
too, like we say all the time, be prepared to pivot. If things are going wrong in one direction, be prepared to pivot in the next direction. It may
absolutely.
it may not be the right decision. You may think it is, but don't stick so hard to that guns that you're like, no, we made this choice. It's like, well, that might not have been the right decision. Let's circle back, see where we made the mistake, and pivot.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So,
that's so funny too, because you have the athletes, and no matter how much you tell them what to expect, when they're in the thick of it, of like the emotional hormone journey, they're seeing the weight gain, acne's coming back, and they're at the thick of it. They're like,
yeah,
okay, I should have got, I shouldn't have pulled it.
yeah,
I need to get back on. It's like, no, we're at the peak right now. You have to ride. We remember we talked about this. You
hmm,
have to ride the wave. See it through. You have to see it
yes,
through. It's going to get uncomfortable. There's very rare that don't not feel anything uncomfortable with this journey. Remember that in those moments when, I call it my healthy brain, when I'm not anxious and not stressed
yes,
and things like that. But then when I'm anxious and stressed, like I remember the decision I made here because I am not my
in
true
the right
self.
brain. Yeah,
Exactly. So remember that decision you made. And when you're
yep,
feeling here, keep going back to that. And if I know that I'm going to be in a situation like that, I write a note to myself, hey, I'm on this date, journaling. This is what I'm about to
yes,
do. I understand this is what's coming. What am I going to do when this happens? Write those mantras to yourself now, because it's going to get hard. It is. It's going to get hard. It's where you got to lean on yourself, lean on your decision, lean on your coach during those moments. But I will say that the clients do it and get through the other side, are so happy that they
yeah,
did,
yeah.
and but like I said, it's a journey.
Yeah, and it's just like anything else that we talk about with prep, you just gotta remember your why. Remember why you're doing this. Remember the ultimate goal, the ultimate result you're searching for. It's gonna be uncomfortable getting there sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So, with that, we're gonna wrap up for today because I'm sure you got a busy day ahead of yourself here. I know I've got client check-ins still left to do.
I have like so many consults this week, which is fantastic, but I've just been
Yeah,
like on the phone all day.
nice, nice. Well, I mean, it's again going back to what we were saying before. It's like if you stop, then you start feeling it. But if you just keep going, just keep pushing because that's healthy.
Absolutely. Drew, me, Jamie, we all just keep saying we just got to get till Saturday. Like
Yeah, we'll be
once
good.
we get to
We'll be good.
Saturday, hopefully we'll be all cut up, sleep, work, just a couple more days.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, almost there, almost there.
Almost
So,
there.
well, guys, I hope that was helpful. Please feel free to comment too if you have any questions. Maybe something we touched on sparked a question or something like that. So, comment below the video, and just maybe we can circle back around like next podcast or something if there's something that we said that like sparked a thought in your process. Okay. And with that, for behind the bikini, we are out. Bye, guys.
Bye.